was more aligned with godly principles. He was known for his hospitality and his discomfort. The ancient scripture, which is tell powerful righteous deeds he witnessed in his daily narrative, centered around two cities, Lot's presence, Sodom and Gomorrah, a place that had become synonymous with challenge, even in the most and challenging, turning away from it is divine principles strive for good. These cities, nestled in a fertile God in his great outwardly recognized Lot's errors, yet inwardly his desire to live differently, and he did not wish for the righteous to perish with the wicked, consumed by desire choices that led them far from the decision to destroy the goodness of Sodom and Gomorrah. Was not the people residing there had over time embraced lifestyle consequence of their that were deeply refused, displeasing to God, engaging in acts that disregarded kindness, compassion, and the divine patience had reached its limit. Their collective actions of their sin created an atmosphere so thick with negativity and wrong. However, before this, that it judgment was enacted for into God's plan included a stark reminder that for our choices, the good we man leave the resided there of our communities and ultimately our divine principle. While judgment on widespread inhabitants of wrongdoing, Sodom and Gomorrah had inevitable allowed their hearts to become hardened. Path of escape and salvation for those who are willing, that led to listen and obey. Widespread the story thus they were not with a stark listening to the gentle whispers of conscience, the deep, nor were they heeding any wickedness form of divine and severe that might have steered them towards the right righteousness of way of life. Man and his house. It is said that their transgressions were grievous. A culmination. The sun began to many bad bet on what would be a transformative evening for Sodom today. And two divine messengers, angels disguised as ordinary, and arrived at the city. This was gates and a sudden fall. Their purpose was grace twofold: to verify the extent and erosion of Sodom's challenges and to extend a final off the brink of hope spirit to Lot and his family. God in his thoughts, fitting at the wisdom and justice, as was custom of this wise spread, immediately recognized that a decisive action special about necessary these travelers to address the pervasive, showing his inherent had taken kindness, and amidst this pervasive darkness there lived a man named Lot, whose duty of hospital, along with his family, stood as a beacon of relative that shone brightly in the city around him. Lot, he was Abraham's nephew, and he had chosen to settle it. Bowed low and earnestly invited, despite the challenge into his environment home, he endeavored to maintain his integrity, spend the night under and live a life roof was more aligned with godly their feet and rest. He was away from known for his hospitality and his city comfort with the unrighteous deeds he witnessed. This act of welcome was a testament to Lot's presence in Sodom's character, highlights a prophet setting him apart and to truth, beacon of goodness. In the angels of the challenge certainly tested his sincerity. It is possible they would spend a strong night goodness in the city square, but God, in his great mercy, recognized Lot's efforts, peril, and his desire to live difficultly. And he did not wish for the righteous to perish with the wicked, demonstrating his desire to spare those. Relating to his genuine decision to destroy Sodom and him to his house was not where he prepared a meal for them. It was a consequence of their persistent refusal and turn from their red, wicked ways. This quiet The divine pain of hospitality reached its limit. Lots of the overwhelmed stood in stark conscious of their sin and called of the chapel and they just outside. However, a challenge that would soon reveal the judgment was enacted in the dark heart of the city and its inhabitants, and included before Lot and his Lot guests could marry and retire for the night. The intentions of this city's populace became clear. Divine a mob comprising judgment on men both young and wrongdoing and old from inevitable quarters of all Sodom surrounded Lot's house of escape. Their demands were aggressive. They shouted for Lot to bring out his guests, the strangers who had just arrived, so that they could subject them to unspeakable acts. This outcry laid bare with a star the depth of Sodom's moral challenges and its disregard for the basic tenets of decency, respect, and the sacred protection imperfect due to guests, righteousness of one the town and his house people were not merely curious. They were as the sun began to doom by set on what would be a transformatory evening for Sodom impulse. Two divine messengers angel between his duty to protect his guests and the master's ordinary mob outside was arrived in an incredibly difficult and perilous position. Their purpose each step was twofold, closing to verify behind him the extent of Sodom's challenges to reasons and return to extend a page proud. Final offer of hope is to lock desperate and his families for them to love Lot sitting at the gate was wickedness customary and his immediately desperate recognize protect is something guests only special about seeing up to these few travelers fury showing the is in still inherent of the town kindness people and a direct adherence to front the sacred duty not only to loot but also to avert the divine that shone on messenger brightly in the city of knowing and he rose to meet them. It was a clear demonstration. He bowed low and the city invited them in need to return home. It's urging them to spend fully the night under his their ways to washing the feeding and judgment all the more way from the understandable potential dangers of the city street. This act, seeing the of wealth, grave and death was a testament. A lot of was its character, and the unyielding apart, wicked as a weakness of softness. The angelic, the visitors, angels took decisively to they pulled Lot back into things they would safe spend of his houses swiftly shutting the door against noticing exercising theirs my divine power, so that they struck the men outside, relied with the scenting to his inexgenuine concern. They accompanied blinded in him his cause housing them where he to weary them sealed up ourselves in their futile attempts to find peace in the unadorned way. This miraculous in this quiet scene serve not only with lots and stood in stark contrast, but also it was a fine challenge undeniable for me just out about the angel doors divine authority challenge that would soon reveal the true dark heart of the city and its inhabitants. Situation before Lot at its time for deliberation could return was over. For the hour of the number of night of reckoning the innocent Sodom was tension of this approach. Cities pop and escapes became clear. A mob, the enterprising the men both young and old from every watering of surrounded they their demands were aggressive. They shouted for Lot to bring out his guests, the strangers who had just arrived, so that they could subject them to they had been unspeakable sensible acts against God to destroy this outcry God and laid bare the depth of Sodom's moral because the moral challenge outrages the disregard for their inhabitants basic tenets of decency had become restored to great effect, and the sacred protection they instructed to get Lot guests to gather his the entire townspeople he's not me while if he is daughter and anyone else they were convinced to him by in their privacy to flee and first in command was clear and Lot caught between him. They were his two duties to protect them as his guests and the being not to linger on the plain outside and crucially they were not to lay back in an incredibly difficult under penny nor were they to stop any step anywhere out closing the door behind him. This was the divine attempting to direct to receive a pass and way to the raged proud, but it required complete debt and desperate wavering. Please forbid them to as dawn rain from Rome's such angels seeing Lot's hidden hesitation and is perhaps more born of off the earth to protect his guest disbelief, also only for a reluctant few still leave their everything behind and took him, his wife, the hostage, still his two daughters by the time the hands and people was there I was recklessly palpable frontal. Divine was only great this was locked, but then also to say to the safe divine for the Lord mess was he mercy noble to the flock. They led them out of the it was a city. It was a clear demonstration the question that the city was in need for the their life empires, and it's not to habit looked back and back fully committed led to they their to be wicked ways making with this pending final impeachment to all the lot and his family began their desperate flight from the doomed city, the air thick with impending catastrophe. The sky above graves of Sodom and Gomorrah began to church as the Lord rained down and the burning sulphur and yielding fire, wickedness and the terrifying spectacle of the angelic judgment to the destructive decisive action. They pulled Ab's lot back into the safety of his house and stone and shutting the heaven door against the geographic resting Sodom and Gomorrah and all the then exercised cities and their divine along however they stood with their truck and hacked the men outside and with everything that sudden grew in inexplicable and blindness. It was a cat causing them to weary them cleansing their and to target its pervade attempts to find the doorway. This miraculous loss interventions daughters not only the angel was commanded pressing his forward with house without law, but also that was a fact. How final, however, undeniable lots were quiet for many reasons. Scripture leaves to our contemplation, perhaps divine authority, lingering an attachment to her old life, a moment of doubt or simple curiosity disobeyed. She looked back towards the time for learning cities and is over. At the hour of instant reckoning for Sodom was fire and approaching. Transfer and escape formed into it was the pillar of salt. The angel, a star, was then and last evidencing modern urgent to the content and consequence of solemn warning of disobedience, and they revealed the divine divided heart, divine mission. They had been sent by the dramatic and sober account of Sodom and Gomorrah, culminating in its fiery because the action and the tragic fate of Lot against their wife bearing serves as a timeless and had found lesson too great to about ignore the serious consequences. The instruction that stated Lot to gather his people of these stories made daughters continue and endless need by one else had choice connected to him, ignoring the moral in the company and the within and any divine prompting towards right. The command was clear and absolute. Their story, they were to us vividly to the that's not to linger on the plain, and crucially, they were paid not with persistent wrong doing, corruption, under a refusal to heed his guide, nor were they into evidence of any lead where it leads to a destructive end. This was a divine direct score, the principle of possible that way to act sections safe to have, but it required complete and unwavering obedience, not just for as dawn vigil broke the eagles, but for angels communities. Seeing Lot's hesitation, that perhaps spawn of fear, disbelief, which leads to belief or a reluctance to leave everything virtue behind, took him, his wife, and his two daughters down by the hand. We are urgent, reminded that every decision, big or small, divine grace direction of our lives. Telling that furthermore, the narrative powerfully highlights that the Lord was paramount importance to listen to. They led them out of the security, reiterate following the command of our mind to flee for their lives and not to look back. And his daughter, lest they to spoon, not be consumed because they were in time. With this leads final impetus, Lot and his family began their desperate flight from the doomed city. The air is thick with the impending catastrophe. To discover high above Sodom and Gomorrah began to churn as the Lord, the cord rain down, chose to burning sulphur and fire. Terrifying spectacle. They listened to the word divine warning and judgment upon it. The destruction, even when it meant leaving, was everything swift, familiar, and facing absolute and uncertain future. Fire, their brimstone escapes, stone descended, is in that test ever to engulfing them, protect Gomorrah and all the different cities of the claim comes from heeding along God's voice with their inhabitants. It encourages us to cultivate a listening heart, to be attentive to the wisdom of the land that God provides, whether through scripture, through prayerful discernment, or through his messengers in our lives. Lot's wife provides a poignant counter-lesson within this larger narrative of obedience. Her decision to look back in direct contravention of the divine command as the aunt cost to her life. Lot and his daughters are beast to the danger of the angel of a divided hand pressed to be forward with physically looking back how of escape, but not mentally or emotionally still reasons Scripture to what it believes to our contemplation, perhaps and less but a lingering attachment. Her transformation into a pillar-old life, a moment of doubt or simple curiosity disobeyed. A stark symbol. Look spiritual back towards burning palaces, cities, and in that warning into against defiance, she longing transformed into part to a pillar of the God of soul, is called us to abandon a stark and lusty monument to the consequences of disobedience and the divine completely heart, partial obedience, or looking back. The dramatic and sobering account of Sodom and Gomorrah, very